At the outset, I wish you all a wonderful morning. This webinar is in continuation with the webinar series which we embarked upon last year, evincing our interest on research methodology, linguistics, and literary theory. This year, when we were gearing up for our second series, we thought of zeroing on English language teaching, and we have with us this morning the ever best resource person, Dr. Lal C.A., Professor of English, University of Kerala. With this introduction, we are moving on to a brief inaugural program, and I invite our head of the department, our perpetual inspiration, and our stronghold, Ms. Lakshmi Chandrasekhar, to deliver the welcome speech. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to one and all. As we all know, the pandemic COVID-19 has been wreaking havoc in all walks of life for the past 1.5 years. The field of education has undergone a massive change within a short span of time due to this worldwide calamity. Today, the national webinar organized by the PG Department of English, Government College Attingal, seeks to trace the new models and changes occurred in the discipline of ELT in the post-pandemic milieu. Now, without further ado, let me commence my duty of welcoming the eminent dignitaries and all the respectable participants to this function. First of all, I warmly welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Sita Lakshmi Madam, who has always been a pillar of support to the faculty and the students of GCA to this program. A hearty welcome to you, ma'am. Dr. Lal C.A. Dr. Lal C.A., the eminent academician of international reputation, is the resource person on the first day of this webinar. Dr. Lal C.A. is a professor of English in the University of Kerala with nearly 3 decades of teaching experience. He coordinates the MA program in the School of Distance Education and is member of the Faculty of Arts of the university and a member of Board of Studies in several universities and autonomous colleges. He currently coordinates the Kerala University Pathshala project, which is a growing repository of multidisciplinary educational videos. He is also an English language trainer and teacher educator, an alumnus of the International Visitor Leadership Program of the US State Department. He is involved in academic engagements in several countries, including UK and Indonesia. He has a handful of publications to his credit and is in the editorial boards of 4 journals. On behalf of PG Department of English and Government College Attingal, I warmly welcome you, sir, to this program. Next, I gladly welcome our dynamic IQAC coordinator, Dr. Sunil Raj, sir, to this event. Last but not the least, on behalf of the PG Department of English, Government College Attingal, I extend a very warm welcome to all the enthusiastic participants out there from inside and outside the state of Kerala who are attending this function via online, and I wish you all an intellectually stimulating and engaging webinar sessions and paper presentations ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for those wonderful words. Now it's time for felicitations. I call upon our principal in charge, Dr. Sita Lakshmi, our constant source of support, ingenuity, and inventiveness, to offer her felicitations.
Okay, thank you, Neville, sir. A very good morning to one and all. Respected and dear HOD of English, Lakshmi teacher, our distinguished guest, Dr. C.A. Lal, Professor, School of Distance Education, then our IQAC coordinator, then the participating teachers, then the students, and my dear colleagues at English department. First of all, let me make a few personal comments. It's a moment of personal happiness for me. Dr. C.A. Lal Do you remember me? I was a frequent or regular visitor at your department, School of Distance Education, a couple of years back.
Yes, I
While I
do
was
remember.
pursuing my PhD with Dr. Shija SR, a colleague of Dr. C.A. Lal, and we often met there and made conversations. So very happy moments there. I am remembering that moments. So
Yes.
from my guide's words and from the introductory remarks of Dr. Srim Lakshmi teacher, I knew that he is a man of versatile talents, a multi-talented person, and very proficient in his profession in English teaching and learning. And we are so thankful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation and being a part of our institution's event. Then coming to the theme of the program, from the brochure and the conversations I have made with the colleagues, I know that it is something evolves around framing new models suitable to the changed post-pandemic world. And I think it will be beneficial to the teaching community in English. And I hope that it will be very useful to all the stakeholders participating in this program. So congratulating Team English for taking such a topic and wishing all the best for its successful culmination. Congrats to Dr. Neville Stephen for the wonderful coordination of this program. And thank you all. And wishing once again all the best to this program.
Thank you, ma'am, for those praiseworthy and upright words. As we all know that our webinar is jointly organized by the IQAC of our college, and now I invite Dr. Surilraj NV, our coordinator of IQAC, to offer his felicitations.
Respected dignitaries, dear teachers, and student participants, a very good morning to one and all. It is encouraging to notice that the PG Department of English of our college is conducting the second webinar series, this time on the topic New Models and Avenues in the English Language Teaching in the Post-Pandemic Era. As everyone knows, the dedication and hard work of the Department of English of our college towards academic excellence brought all of us here today for this wonderful webinar program on a novel topic or an interesting topic. This seminar schedule or seminar themes brushes upon a spectrum of interesting and benefiting themes that would benefit all the participants about the new aspects, avenues, and prospects of the English language teaching in this post-pandemic era. I wish this initiative every success and all the best, and also a good support from the team IQC for college. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunilraj sir. With this, we are coming to the end of the brief inaugural program. And now we are moving on to our national webinar titled Contouring New Paradigms in ELT in the Post-Pandemic Milieu. I think this topic is of substantive, enduring importance, and we have received some very good and interesting papers for presentation, and we have participations right from Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari. So, as per the schedule, now the time is 10:11, and Lalsa will be talking for another 1 hour during the plenary session. And after that, our paper presentations will follow. This is a short piece of information which I would like to share with you as introduction. Now we'll be having our first plenary session, and I invite Lalsa to take the floor. Over to you, Lalsa.
Thank you for the nice words of introduction, Dr. Neville, Dr. Leksha, and the principal, Sita ma'am. Well, if you had not mentioned that, I wouldn't have
realize that you are the person who used to constantly visit Shijat, my colleague. Lovely to see you there, and very happy to know that you are the principal of that college, college right now. So at the outset, let me start sharing my PowerPoint with you. Okay, so we are discussing new paradigms in ELT in the post-pandemic era. And I thought I will name my paper, title my paper, Post-Pandemic Thoughts on ELT. Well, I'm not very sure it is post-pandemic or if we are still in, within a stage of the pandemic. Anyway, whether it is post or we are going through it or whatever, it's very relevant and very significant to think of developments in English language teaching that have been going on the last year and a half or maybe 2 years. And well, my talk today will be mostly on technology, because the biggest change that we have experienced since the lockdown and such singular developments in early 2020s is that we have begun using technology a lot. So my talk is largely on technology, but before that, maybe I'll spend a few minutes to reiterate the constants, the foundational things about English learning and teaching that we should not perhaps forget. We should keep in mind at the back of our minds all the time. One is that English language teaching has to be very much student oriented, student focused. I'm trying to avoid cliches like student centered, because the moment I say student centered, everyone would feel that that is something I know, but we don't apply our minds on that. So we believe that our long lectures in the class, which are highly teacher focused, are also student centered. So we are very often not very conscious about what exactly is learner-centeredness. So as far as particularly with teaching a second language, having the learners at the center, or the predominantly structuring the whole activity, the curriculum development and the classroom planning and classroom delivery, all those things, evaluation, everything has to be done keeping in mind the needs of the learners, the actual situation of the learners, etc., which these are facts that are known. So this is applicable to all aspects of pedagogy, all subjects, but of particular relevance to English or Hindi learning, because much that we talk about learning and teaching English can be said about any other second language, including Hindi or French or German that we have with us, Syriac. Well, I would say Syriac and Latin are slightly different, or Sanskrit is different, but English and Hindi and Tamil, if it is spoken, and French and German, these are all actual languages which people learn for actual practical everyday needs. Those languages like Latin, Syriac, Sanskrit would be more for the sake of scholarship. So that is one thing. Learner-centeredness, we cannot forget. Secondly, the focus on skills is most important. Because in our teaching learning situation, when it comes to teaching learning Malayalam, which happens to be our mother tongue, we are not very much worried about the basic communicative aspects. Recently, someone discovered that many of our foundational or the primary level textbooks in Malayalam do not even have the Padavali, the alphabet. Primarily, probably because those are known to us. So very easily accessible to us. We grow up learning the language and we pick it up on our way into the world and in the months and years that follow. But when it comes to English, which is a second language, the approach has to be very, very different. And for the initial long period, we need to focus a lot on the essential communicative aspects. Though that is not the thing that should be happening in colleges, because by the time students reach college, we should reasonably expect them to be proficient in English or whichever language. And then the they do their advanced academic studies in the college. But that also doesn't happen. But so we cannot in the higher education level, we cannot ignore that responsibility as well. So we need to focus on the skill imparting aspect of language learning and language teaching as well. So that's another basic thing. We need to give our students a lot of context bound, focused practice in the different skills of English. So this practice orientedness is necessary. And also we need to give additional focus to listening and speaking, because those are aspects that are most essential and very difficult to organize into the syllabus. So I was doing an interview some days back, and a student was asked to do a lesson on any lesson, and she chose to do a speaking lesson. And what was happening was she took up a chalk and started telling the imaginary class before her all the different aspects of reading. So this is what still happens in our classes. We teach students the nuances of reading, we teach them the nuances of writing, and we teach them the nuances of listening, and they don't actually listen, they don't actually have practice in reading, they don't have actual practice in writing as we would expect them to have, as one would normally desire. So those things are serious issues that we need to be challenged. Post, pre, or whatever, when it has nothing to do with the pandemic, these are certain things that never changes in our context, particularly in our context. So those are basic things, and the other final statement in this, concluding this aspect, would be we still focus a lot on talking about English. So particularly in our grammar classes, we talk a lot about English. We say that English is this, English is that, and English is spoken like that. English has this kind of a structure, English has that kind of a structure. But we don't actually, we need to ask ourselves whether we really teach the language, because it's not a knowledge about the language. So for me, the knowledge that French language has many features, French language grammar is such, French pronunciation is such, all those information doesn't help me a lot until I start actually pronouncing French, actually speaking French. When I try to listen to French, when I actually do that, I am still a stranger to the language. So it's like somebody giving you a lecture on swimming, and vis-a-vis actually jumping into the water and swimming. So these issues are there all the time. So today, the next 30 minutes or so, I hope to talk, review the technological aspects that we have been encountering since the pandemic began to disrupt our regular work. So in 2020, around March, April, June, perhaps, we had a lot of technology thrust upon us. I have intentionally used the word thrust because I am a person who has been using computers, etc., maybe since 2000, early 2000 onwards. So actual use of computers, and very much into technology out of interest and curiosity. Though I don't have advanced knowledge in information technology, I've been a user, like most of us are. I have been a user, and I've been very enthusiastic about online learning, about distance learning in the video conferencing mode, which now we are using. Even what we are doing right now is a video conferencing mode. So all those things have fascinated me, and I remember that in 2018, if I remember the year right, not very long ago, there was a seminar, a workshop in my university which I coordinated, and I arranged a little session in which a resource person from England interacted with us through an online conferencing mode. At that time, we had no notion about the Google Meet or the Zoom or the WebEx or the Webinar Jam or whatever. All those things suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Many of these things were already there, but we did not know, and many were customized and developed for our use at remarkable speed over the last several months. Well, in that case, in 2018, when I was very excited, I noticed that everybody was rather lukewarm about it. It was meant done for teachers, and nobody were as excited as I thought they would be. Well, I'm not blaming. Maybe I failed to incite that kind of an excitement. Also, in around 2015, and in the university there is a facility for teaching online, and I attended a course, conducting a course online. And I remember maybe some of the speakers, some of the listeners, participants of this conference were also there in that. Some 33 people took part, but then it did not go further. Well, but the thing is, and my thought in 1915 was that by 1917, this would become a big part of academic life. And things like video conferencing, which had already been there for a very long time. Maybe I've been hearing about things like the big blue button and the for the last at least 15 years. So all these things have been there, but nothing had been really happening in the way one would expect them to. But then suddenly, everything became the rule of the day. So that's why I said that technology was thrust upon us, and then we began to do all these things. So it is in a way, it's a good thing. So every evil has a few good repercussions, and this could be considered to be one of those. So I'm very happy as a person who is interested in technology and who believes that technology can help us a long way. By technology, I mean technology that is related to teaching, ICT, particularly ICT, in information communication technology, or whatever the expansion is, computer, internet, etc., and particularly in relation to teaching, and then even more specifically in relation to language teaching. So we had been working with video conferencing tools like Google Meet, Zoom, and all those things. And then we had been talking about LMS, learning management systems, but then suddenly we began using them. So it's like language learning. We always think that we will learn language first in great detail and start speaking, but then suddenly you are pushed into a circumstance where you have to use the language and you start speaking. So I have plans to learn Hindi perhaps, and I never learn, and then suddenly I have to settle down in an area where only Hindi is spoken, and in a month I start speaking Hindi. So that kind of an eventuality happened, and we began using learning management systems like the Google Classroom that many of us are trying is a kind of LMS, and many of these things like the Microsoft has this, or I forgot the name of that platform, Teams, Microsoft Teams. That's partly a LMS also. And we can have Moodle as a LMS, but then we'll need to bring in a video conferencing tool to assist that. So those became very familiar to us, at least. We have had many workshops on creating classes on Moodle and things like that. And then we also had always knew that there were a lot of online resources available out there, but in the actual classrooms, in seminars, in webinars, we were not using a lot of online resources. I wouldn't say that we are not been using, but not as much as one would expect an academician to use. But now suddenly, in both our teaching and on the side of the learners in their learning process, online resources became so vital a component as it never was. And then another interesting thing that happened was that the smartphones were taboo in colleges. Teachers were not supposed to use smartphones in many campuses, and the students were not allowed to use the kind of smartphone. Now, smartphone overnight became a hero, even a saintly figure. So all classes became focused on smartphones. So these are four interesting developments that happened over the last several months in globally and to us. So focus is on ICT and ELT. And yeah, so I'm talking about the present insights we have got from using technology. So there has been a looking at ICT and ELT, what are the big possibilities? Meaning, what are the what shall we say? How can we become more effective teachers of English language with the help of technology? So these deliberations have always been there. There have been sessions on blended learning and flipped classroom even 10 years ago. But we, and in many parts of the world, they have been tried also. They have been not tried, they have been widely used. The blended model of learning and all those things have been widely used in many international platforms. But in a country like ours, we have not been using it much. I wouldn't say it is simply because of dearth of technology or dearth of resources. That is so. This is not a session in which I would eulogize technology, in which I would glorify the fantastic faces of technology. So I would assume that everyone sitting here, everyone listening to me, are adept users or out of liking for it or out of because we had no option. We have people who have been using technology quite a lot, quite an immense lot. So I would also be looking at the flip side of it, the things we need to be a little careful about when it comes to technology. So that is basically the structure of what I'm doing today. So in terms of use in the ELT classroom, technology offers immense resources for practice. So that is point number one. It offers a unlimited resources for practice. And one preemptive bail I would like to take is, in my slides, there are likely to be small spelling related issues. I have rectified whichever I can. That's because I am using a software, a word processing software called WPS Office, which is very good, but it is free. So you won't have prompts to activate, etc. It's free and it's very, you can, Microsoft Word is the best actually. But yeah, if you have a paid version, it is very good, but it's very expensive. So the ones we use in our computers are mostly dubious, cracked versions, and they keep giving you trouble of one kind or another. But most of us use it. But then I thought it will be I'll use this WPS Office. But somehow in the settings, is the only problem I have with WPS Office is that it doesn't have this spell check option. It doesn't seem to work with me. Maybe it is there. Maybe it needs some exploration. In the PowerPoint aspect, so there may be slight mistakes. So the mistakes in my PowerPoint slides could be partly due to my ignorance. It could also because of my negligence. So either way, unpardonable, but do bear with me. So coming to resources for practice, we have, first is listening. Though I have not written anything against it, listening is the prime area in which we have a dearth in practice, and we have a problem with resources in practice. I remember as a student in the University College Trivandrum in the mid 80s, I completed my PG in 89. I used to pester my head of the department, knowing that there were some recordings in the department somewhere, maybe in the almirah of the that seems to relax in the head of the department's room. So I would go to him and say that, sir, I understand that there are some audio material here. Will you give us a chance to listen to them? I had no clue in what form these audio material were. Were they in big spools or were they in tapes? I did not know because I never saw them. And initially, my head of the department smiled at me very benignly and said, we will try. And the second time asked, he became a little grumpy. The third time, he became very grumpy. And the fourth time, he looked fire, he began to shoot fires, fireballs at me. His eyes were emitting fury. And then I did not have the courage to ask him anymore. Well, most of the heads of the department would understand the stress we are in. And I'm not a head of a department yet, but still, we know the difficulties. So when somebody comes and pesters, it's trouble, because probably the sir had no idea where these were. And probably he had no idea how to play them, because probably there was only this material and nothing to play it on. In those days, players, cassettes were there, audio, which were very much used, but maybe not for older versions of audio, recorded audio stuff. Anyway, it didn't happen. I never got an opportunity to listen to anything in my college days. Why I wanted to listen was just curiosity. But then, the movies were there all, in the theaters, which we could watch at that time. And for listening practice, you need a lot of listening material. But today, with technology, you have YouTube, you have podcasts, you have this, you have that. You have audio material all over the internet. So there is no dearth of listening practice material. The only thing is that as a learner, you need to invest some time locating and listening. And as teachers, we need to maybe invest some time assembling the suitable material and then recommending it to the students. Reading, certainly a lot of material. Writing, a lot of possibilities there online. You have blogs, you have so many other ways. And I think in the last months since the pandemic, we have been typing a lot. Though we still have the habit of typing in shorthand and in abbreviations, etc. We haven't grown out of that, because there's nothing wrong with abbreviations. The kind of abbreviations we use in the mobile phone and all those things, we know that. Those, there's nothing wrong, but actually mobile phone texting is equivalent to speech. So you don't speak in full sentences. You don't even speak in full words in actual life. And these short forms are, typed versions of speech. But when we write an email, you're supposed to write a proper mail, a structured mail. 3 days back, I got an email from some person saying, it is here. Give me a second. That is something I wanted to share. Yeah, it's from apparently a girl, and it has nothing. It says for publication, FOR publication, and there is no matter typed, and 2 essays are attached. So I have no clue what this person means. Which publication is it? What am I supposed to do it? Am I supposed to look at it and give her the feed? Is she a student? Is she a teacher? Absolutely no clue. So this is our stage, and many teachers also communicate like this. They just sent an email without anything in the subject box, without a body, and some people send, please download the attachment. It's a kind of order that you give to your colleagues. Please download the attachment. The idea is that you download the attachment, read it, and understand what happens inside. So we still have serious problem in communication. We believe that email is a different form of communication where you can be very, very impolite. That is not so. Anyway, but that would be another class or another talk when we talk about email etiquette. So anyway, for all practical purposes, we have been typing a lot. We have been writing a lot. Typing is also writing. Yeah, and about speaking also, we have been having, or we should be having a lot of practice, because we have now the facility to record our audios. It has always been there, but many of us haven't tried. Now everybody has got a camera. The mobile phones have excellent cameras. Our laptops have excellent cameras. We can record our own videos and our audio, and not to be publicized all the time, maybe for our own improvement of your own, or keep a web log of your a video log of your activities. So if you take a short video, if videos are difficult, you can go for audio logs, so short audios that you record. So all these things have been made very, very, very easy. What could not even be dreamed of maybe 20 years back is so accessible today in that miraculous little thing that everybody carries around with them, this mobile phone, which we also call a smartphone. So another area in which technology has been helping us a lot is online language training, practice, and online courses. So today, from those preparing for IELTS exam, TOEFL exam, or OET, or there are so many online exams which people take to study abroad or work abroad. There are a lot of tutorials available online using computer, mobile phone. People practice that a lot. And then for English, for no particular reason, so if you want to generally improve your reason, there are so many websites which will give you practice in vocabulary, quizzes in vocabulary, and structured listening practice, and grammar exercises which we can do, functional grammar or whatever grammar you want to study, and to improve your spelling, improve your pronunciation. All these things are out there. Only thing is, there are too many, and it's very difficult to zero in on the suitable ones, or maybe there are 1,000 suitable ones and you can't use all of them. So only there is too much of these things. But people use technology quite a lot for language learning these days. And for teacher development, which is, I think, a high priority that we haven't given enough attention, or we have been, well, the present program itself is a kind of teacher development exercise where we have papers on teaching as well. I believe there will certainly be papers on teaching as well. So teacher development, developing a person as a pedagogue, as a person with skills in knowing the student and imparting, or rather encouraging learning to happen naturally, etc. It's very important. And we do not come out into the world with that naturally. So all of us teachers who are here, maybe there are also a few students who will become teachers eventually. We are excellent in our subject area. We have excellent scores, and we have immense knowledge too. But that doesn't really make us excellent teachers all the time. Even the best natural born teacher could do a bit with, I think the spelling of, there's a spelling problem of development, but don't let that trouble you. Even the best teacher might need or could do with a lot of orientation. So you may be born with a lot of instinctive knowledge about people. You have high people skills, interpersonal skills. Still, a kind of orientation would be helpful. So there are a lot of teacher development workshops happening all the time. So I would recommend you to become members in associations like the TESOL, which is, they call it TESOL International Association now. IATFL is another association. And British Council has a lot of online teaching and learning material. The British Broadcasting Corporation has. American English.state.gov has a lot of material for learning. And I should have mentioned ELT also, English Language Teachers Association of India, which is the biggest and very dynamic association that works inside India. And you can join IATFL through ELT. All those possibilities are there. So as a community, English language teachers should develop themselves in whatever way is possible. We don't sit under the feeling that I have enough knowledge and now I just need to. The problem is all with the students. Let's constantly keep ourselves updated. And today, immense possibilities are there. From any part of the world, any bit of expertise can be ours through webinars that constantly happen on ELT. And also we can take courses, MOOC courses, massive open online courses in repositories like Coursera, edX. I have listed only these two. There will be, they are compendiums or collections where you have hundreds and hundreds of courses. So they bring together different courses offered free by universities in different parts of the world. So which are all known to you, but if you are not in the habit of doing it, please start exploring those things. We have short courses there. Many of them are free. You need not take paid courses, but if there is an excellent paid course, there's nothing wrong in doing it. It's all part of our development as teachers. And on the other side, we have also become developers of courses. So in the last several months, I'm very sure using many LMSs, including Google Classroom, we have developed courses, course material, and we have collected content for our students. So that has been happening the last several months. Moodle we have explored. We have been, so many of us are using Google Classroom for very systematic paced and asynchronous learning. So the paced learning, asynchronous learning are related to what I said as introduction, things that we need to ensure when you think of a learner-centered teaching paradigm. Because the students should not be under pressure, particularly when it comes to language learning. You can't threaten a person into learning language. He has to do it very comfortably in his own pace or her own pace. And it need not always be asynchronous. When the teacher is there and you learn simultaneously. Asynchronous learning is not easy. Only the direct classes that we have in the direct contact classes that happen in colleges, either through the online mode or in the actual physical environment of the class, will synchronous learning happen. So synchronous learning is direct learning, and actual learning, the big extensive learning happens outside. It is always asynchronous. It is not synchronous at all. To make it simpler, what happens in our classroom is only a tip of the iceberg. The learning as such happens outside. So it's our mission to see that the students learn inside the classroom, and also they go out and continue this classroom. That is where we have this flip model, etc., coming. So we have been doing a lot of things for asynchronous learning to ensure asynchronous learning, and we have been working on YouTube channels, and many of us have have started YouTube channels. I have been doing that since lockdown on many topics, particularly for my students in the distance mode. Then I began to like that. But many, and I noticed that many of my colleagues, many friends have been developing videos and then putting them in the YouTube. YouTube is a very convenient platform on which we can share videos in a limited manner or in a wider manner. And Telegram channel is another very convenient. The problem with WhatsApp groups is that when a person comes in, he'll be able to access only the information that is there from that point of his entry or her entry. If you create a Telegram channel, you can, the moment you join, you will be able to look at all the material that has already been posted. So that's a very convenient thing. Many teachers use Telegram channels to bring in content for the students to listen to or read or watch at their leisure. But coming to the final part of my talk, and I would say the most important part of the talk would be the limits and cautions that we need to have in mind when we use ICT. The other day we were talking to, in my department, School of Distance Education, we were short of classes because slowly we are planning to have more physical contact classes. And we requested another center for another institution for space, and they were very helpful, and they said, we're just fine. You can use any of our classrooms on Sundays. It's fine. But the person also was complaining that if we had we have been requesting constantly for a few smart classrooms, but we still haven't got them. If we could have a few smart classrooms, we could have done better, etc. But I would say this is something we need to seriously look upon. Do we become more effective if we have more smart classrooms? Is a question we need to ask ourselves. Very often we are governed by fanciful notions, not much about the practical aspects. Many of the smart classrooms we have, I don't know if we are using them. I need to come to them. I'm not criticizing that. I know that smart classrooms are excellent places which offer immense rooms, offer immense teaching possibilities. But we need to consider a couple of aspects. I'm coming to that. So ICT has opened up a whole new world for language learning, but making choices and prioritizing is very, very important. Because one, there is a plethora of information out there. There's a plethora of technological gadgets out there. And we need to be extremely careful, both in the soft aspect and in the hard aspect, in choosing the material. Because if you say to the students, okay, you have a lot of information out there, go and collect them. it's very likely that the student is lost. So very often you might need to structure your classes in such a way that you give them precise information about perhaps to the extent that you can limit their search. So you can't expect them to search for 2 months and finally come to the good thing. If you have a few very useful sites, it's important to tell them. And that happens with teachers as well. There's a lot of information out there. We need to do a lot of research to zero in on the very useful things. There'll be, maybe there are a dozen useful things and you need to choose one of them and look at that only. Because there are many teaching apps, many teacher supporting apps, which assist, for taking surveys, for live survey while a session is going on. So there are so many to give a quiz, etc. There are immense lot of apps around, but then a knowledge of all these is not even necessary. You don't need such a lot of these apps are like the things that are available in a supermarket. There are so many things in a supermarket. Every single thing in a supermarket is useful for us, but we don't buy all of them. We take only a few things. It's not just because of affordability. It's also because we know by common sense that we don't actually need all these. It's like that. The possibility of learning apps, it never ends. You can go on learning new teaching apps every day, and that you need just a handful of them for actual teaching. So that is one thing, to make choices. And then about prioritizing is when it comes to the gadgets that we can buy and use. One problem with gadgets, including desktop computers, smart boards, and cameras, and projection devices, etc. If you go to any school, any college, you will have a lot of old computers. And even before that, we had a thing called what was it called? And a projector, on which you had a slide. You would write on a transparency sheet and place on and project. Even those things, I forgot the name. I used to have a few in the college where I worked. Including those, you will have a huge collection of useless gadgets piled up in every school and college. A lot of computers. Smart boards invariably only, I would say, 2% has ever been used. All the smart boards are smartly residing in a corner of the rooms where they have been kept, and they have been replaced by a normal writing sheet. There are many reasons for that. I'm not dwelling on the reasons. It's not because the smart boards are not smart. It's not because we are not smart enough to use them, but there are so many other aspects which have been prevented. But there are also a handful of places where smart boards and all these devices are being put to excellent use. It's there. But then, so we need to seriously think, people, who plan budgets, teachers who make demands, think many times before deciding on buying an electronic equipment, however useful it appears to be. Because these instruments are often underused, heavily under. Even computers, we always complain that we need more computers. In the meanwhile, there will be many computers in the college which are not used, and they will never be used because they have become outdated. And it gets damaged. You don't use it for a long time. We have difficulties in getting we don't have a system of constant, repair and maintenance. That's a big problem with all institutions. And because of that, the computers will gather dust, and then you will buy a new one. And then one fine morning, its motherboard will go, and then you will wait for another 6 months to have it rectified. These are things we all know. So decide wisely before going for any of these things. Many departments have excellent cameras which were never used. And if you don't use an electronic gadget for, say, 6 months, it's very likely that some part will stop working. Cameras, for example, have very delicate lenses and things on which mold can form, and then they become useless. And then you might have to apply for a grant to get it serviced, which these hurdles are there. And the projectors have been put to, the best use we have made our projectors and the projection board, which are simple things. So we need to prioritize. We actually don't need much of the so-called smart things that are today being People are attempting to sell us. We have every other day somebody coming to the institution, meeting the principal, meeting the manager, or the government representatives, and trying to sell smart things. But be very careful if you want to conserve money, because we don't have a lot of money to waste in a country like India. In a place like Kerala, every resource we have need to be put to optimum use. So we need to think seriously about these aspects. And expense is one thing. The accumulation of e-waste is another very, very important problem that we cannot turn a blind eye on. These days, when we experience the hazards of environmental, the impacts of our human acts on environment is more and more visible. And we have a big ethical commitment to not to produce a lot of e-waste. So technology, the other side of technology is that we need to consider these two things. They become obsolete very soon. Sometimes the machine works, but the software stops working, and you can't get an update to that. All these things are there. So the most important thing is to be very much aware of these things. Don't be, what shall we say, flabbergasted or bamboozled by somebody who seems to have a lot of technical knowledge. These are all simple things. We need to strengthen our ICT base. So we teach ICT for our students, but our basic knowledge still is a bit shaky. On the basic aspects of ICT, we need to have a very good knowledge. Then we will become very good choosers of the right software and the right hardware in the right measure. And another thing that always troubles me is the belief many people have is of having excellent language labs. So many people say, no, if we had a language lab, we would have done some wonders. But we need to realize that language labs were a necessity long back. And those days, the equipment was a very sturdy thing. The equipment for recording and then listening, it was a sturdy thing. It doesn't there is no software involved, and the hardware is relatively simple, and you could use it for a long time. Now a language lab is a very expensive thing, and it's likely to be heavily underused. So don't dream of language labs. You think very seriously before setting up a language. Unfortunately, many curriculums require language labs, and the policy makers need to be convinced about venturing on expensive attempts like language labs. Simply not because they are useless. They are excellent. But I would, from my practical knowledge and experience, not only in Kerala, in different parts of India and abroad, is that today language labs mean digital language labs with an array of personal computers, listening devices, and expensive software. So think very seriously about that. So I would say that I talk about the supplement in the next slide. And also smart classes. You close up all the windows, put an air conditioner, and put a smart board. It becomes a smart class. But however smart you are, however smart your classroom is, however smart your students are, there are certain other important things that need to be kept in mind before because we have large number of students, and many classrooms do not even have proper benches and desks for our students to sit. Under this context, think seriously about smart classes. How many do we need? To what measure do we need? All these things need to be prioritized, seriously considered before we start complaining about these things. The need and the want issue I have written is there are so many things that we actually need, we are not bothered about. And there are so many things we want, not because we actually need them, but because we fancy them. So we need to keep this balance in mind, focus more on what we actually need, and which is often we don't need that, because even in our personal lives we are often tempted by advertisements, and you go and buy a very expensive thing. You buy a laptop with high specifications costing 1.5 lakhs, and all you're going to do is to type a letter in that and check the email. You could do that in a machine that is about 15,000 rupees. So very often we do that, and then that machine sits in your room underused so heavily that you don't even realize that. So in the same way, there are so many gadgets being sold to us into institutions, which we need to be very much cautious about. All these things are good. Only thing is we need to prioritize and look at our actual needs. Well, I should stop sounding negative and come to the things that the teachers can actually do, the basic things, which if you do not haven't begun, please start familiarizing yourself with, audio recording, recording your own video and then editing them. You can use them, you can do them easily with the software, OBS Studio. Olive is something that people don't talk about a lot, but it's a very, very useful editing software. It's more versatile than OpenShot. OpenShot also is a very good application. They have kind of brought out a recent version. It made it very more useful. But Olive is more versatile. These things are all free. Olive is a free editor, which is very good. So you can record your class. You can edit out those things you don't want and share it, and all those things you can easily do these days. So these are the technological things that perhaps additionally we can learn. Many of us do have this knowledge. Audacity, I am talking about computer-based or laptop-based applications. In the phone, you have even more easier and versatile tools. I don't use that very much, so I don't want to talk about things which I am not sure of. So my own children do all these things using their mobile phones. That's also possible. Yeah. And and coming to language labs, I was talking against language labs a bit. I am a bit against language labs because of the huge expense they involve and because of the e-waste that happens. Because many labs that we set up, we use it only a very little, and then it becomes obsolete in 5 years maximum. Because the software no longer works perhaps, and they will charge you another big amount for an update, and then you find that your department cannot spend that amount. All those things are there. So there are two ways out that I would say. You can create your own language labs. If you are very particular about having a language lab, you can actually create your own language lab. You have with network systems which are used for other things also. If you have in your department, say if you have 10 systems or 7 systems, you network them, and with headsets and stuff, you can a teacher, if he sits and spends some time, can create listening material in a structured manner that the students can use them. I have actually tried this. This is not difficult. It's a very simple way of creating a language lab in your place, if you are very keen on doing that. But language labs serve a very, very important purpose. It gives listening practice. It sharpens your pronunciation, which are two very, very important things. So when I talk about language labs, I am against large investments which are likely to be underused, because such an investment will need to be locked in a place, and somebody should be in charge, and all these things should synchronize for students to use it. But if we can make it more accessible on a smaller scale, language labs can be done on our own in a college. And also you can I would say that only thing we need to be careful about is in a language, in what happens in a language lab is you create listening lessons, or maybe integrated lesson. There would be a listening component. There might be reading and typing also, and maybe the student will also be producing a little audio and submitting. All the skills can be managed. Only thing is you will need to do a selection of material from among millions out there. And I would say the smartphone is the most useful gadget out there. So you don't need any big things in your institution. Only important thing that you have is to have good connectivity. And the teacher, it's convenient to have a laptop. And if you have a smartphone, they are so cheap and so accessible these days. You can do most of these things. An excellent language learning tool. So smartphone would be your little language lab, which is virtual, which is not only virtual, which is portable, which is very versatile. So personal teaching and learning devices, smartphones are excellent personal teaching and learning devices. I would say that instead of thinking of buying large equipments, etc., let us use the marvel that is called a smartphone to its maximum. We don't use it at all, really, only for chatting and for talking, which are essential things that you could do even without a smartphone. For as a learning tool, smartphone is very, very good. So I think that is pretty much what I would want to talk about. So to conclude, I would say that there's a lot of new technology flooding the market. refuse to invest in them unless you're very sure. Consider the pros and cons. I would even say simply because you have a grant for a specific thing, don't go and buy that if you think that you're not going to use it. Well, these are all personal thoughts. Many of the things that I say may not be very practical, but maybe in the long term, all these things, if we keep in mind, we could make choices more wisely and meaningfully. So I would always recommend use less expensive technology. Only thing is, if you want to invest a lot on connectivity. Make Wi-Fi available, high-speed Wi-Fi available everywhere, and then you solve many of the connectivity problems. And never to forget the most important person out there, that is a teacher. Though we talk about learner-centeredness, the most important person, and important in the sense, the person with the greatest measure of responsibility, on whom the onus of teaching and learning rests absolutely, is the teacher. And our resourcefulness and our willingness to enhance our resources and willingness to development and optimize our knowledge and our pedagogical skills is ultimately what counts. So whether there is minimal technology or maximum technology, nothing will restrict us so long as we are willing to become increasingly resourceful, and we are that, and we have proven that in the last 1.5 years. So I wish all the excellent teachers listening to me here all the very best in your attempts, and let us contribute more without much harming the environment, without harming the self-esteem of our learners, and without incurring too much expense in terms of resources. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Lal sir. I think now the platform is open for deliberations. Anyone who is having any genuine doubt, please raise your doubts. So I think, okay, Rajeshwari R has raised his hand. Rajeshwari, can you voice out your question?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Are you able to listen to me?
Yeah, it's
Yes,
audible,
yes.
and you can continue.
Okay. The lecture has been very nice. I really thank you for that. Actually, I'm a PhD scholar. I have had an experience of 11 years of teaching, and I rejoined my education after a gap of 23 years, actually. So I just finished my PhD. My I have actually worked on academic writing. So my question was that, as you mentioned, that at the level of at the tertiary level, we expect our learners to be a little proficient in the language, in the second language, in English. So in that case, do you really think the skills of the language, that is the grammar or the lexes or the syntax, do you think they will also matter if we want to inculcate the academic nature of the language for them to be proficient in, especially not only speaking as in terms of communicative language teaching, but in terms of writing the language? My question was that in that case, then how do we inculcate that aspect to them without giving much importance to the learning of the grammar or teaching of the grammar?
Yeah, well, ma'am, teaching, looking at the aspect called teaching of grammar, it all depends on how you look at teaching of grammar. You can very explicitly teach grammar, which is a different kind of knowledge that you have. Your knowledge of how the language works is a different set of knowledge, and your ability to use language is another set of knowledge. Certainly, we all know that. So I said we assume that because our students learn English in school a lot, maybe from the third year at school, after kindergarten, or in different states it could be different times, and then up to degree second year at least, they learn English. And they learn Hindi also, interestingly. But somehow these do not seem to help us a lot. So I was saying ideally, with all these learning of English or Hindi, they should be speaking those. They should have considerable proficiency to use these for communication by the time they come to the college. But that, because that doesn't happen in a desired level, what we kind of have to do in these days is water down our syllabus to such a level that we are doing very basic things in college these days. So I would say that there's much to say on both sides, but the academic language thing. So the burden that we have is to inculcate with basic communication skills, to strengthen their base, do a bit of remedial teaching, and then give them the academic language to those who want to pursue higher studies using English or Hindi, whichever the target language is. So yeah, I was so when I said ideally they should have the skill, it is only an ideal situation. Doesn't really happen. Maybe with many policy changes, with the language learning being reoriented and strengthened in school level, perhaps a time will come when we can solve all these things. But another thing is that perhaps we could have a kind of bridge thing in the early first semester of English, semester in undergraduate level, when we have an intense program in communication and remedial teaching where the shortcomings are rectified. Because people can, learning English, basic English is not rocket science. Only thing is we have a block against it somehow. So if an intense course can remedy a lot, but when it comes to an adult trying to master that, and then we could perhaps focus more on the academic kind of language that our students need to have.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Any other person? Okay. Daulat, you can pose a question.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, I have 16-year teaching experience in DAV school. My question is that how to inculcate and how to enhance the pronunciation skill to the students, because what I have found during those periods that students from different regions speak different dialects and regional languages. What are those universal acceptable pronunciation skills that must be inculcated in the students?
Now, the question is how it is done.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is part of our big responsibility to ensure that the students are exposed to all varieties. Coming to your region, which language is spoken there in your part of the country?
Mostly, sir, dialects language, as you said. I belongs to Shimla, Himachal Pradesh.
Shimla. Okay. So the language that is spoken is Himachal.
Himachal. Yes, sir.
Oh yeah. So even within that, like for example, so let me take example from Kerala. Kerala is on the other extreme of the country. Lovely to see a person from Shimla. Yeah, here we have, this is a small state, and we have a language called Malayalam. And even within the small geographic area, we have a lot of varieties of Malayalam. So sometimes the people living in the southern extreme of Kerala will not understand what is spoken in the southern and northern extreme of Kerala among ordinary people who are not very literate and not very exposed. So when a teacher a teacher like me speaks to another person, or an educated person speaks, he will be using a neutral kind of Malayalam or a balanced kind of Malayalam. How does this happen? It happens because he or she is exposed to a lot of varieties. He constantly listens to them, and your brain has the capability of assimilating them and see which works best with the speaker. So what you could possibly do is give your students, don't worry about the pronunciation. You could have focused pronunciation sessions. Other than that, give them a lot of listening practice in wide variety of English. That is why I was saying the smartphones would be useful. Give them every day, give them at least 5 minutes of listening, at least 5 minutes, which is attainable to different kinds of English. So let them get used to the language. And this neutral accent that they would speak, will happen only very slowly. And even after they leave, maybe the fruition will happen after they leave your school. Another thing is the individual differences will always be there. You can never have a kind of homogeneous language in any cultural context. The difference will be there, but the important thing is that we should be able to understand and we should feel happy when somebody speaks. So that happens only through a lot of listening.
Okay,
And
thanks.
you could also do that along with that. As a teacher, I do that. Even today, I listen to a lot of English. So that because in my environment, natural English is not very much there because we speak our mother tongue all the time. So even today, I listen a lot. So all kinds of things, maybe related to teaching or related to topics I like, I listen a lot. And that helps me with my English pronunciation as well. So this is something that we need to do as teachers to do constantly. Listen to English, all varieties of English, not British English or American English or Australian English, all varieties, whatever comes our way. And then the rest our brain will do. Our brain is versatile enough to sort out things and put them together in the right way. I hope I have made my point.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thanks, sir. Thanks for your valuable points.
Any other questions, please? So, sir, one Bhagya Rajeshwari, she has made an observation. She has written in the chat box saying that regarding the language labs, I think with the cloud online version of software available these days, the need for physical language labs in institutions continues to be in question.
Certainly, yes. That I agree with Bhagya, and that is what I was also thinking, because and now you have cloud computing, you can have the software up there, and you can use all these things using your mobile phone at home. So you don't really need these machine. I may be criticized if I say you don't need, because there are in many, at least in technical, in engineering colleges, I think having a language lab is still a necessity. That's because the policy makers are not really aware of these things. So because you can now work with limited systems, because everything that a computer can do in terms of the things we are speaking now can be done using a phone. You don't need a elaborate laptop for that. So you have that's why I said that your mobile phone will become a virtual mobile language lab. It will double as a language lab when you need it. It will double as so many other things when you need it. Thank you, Bhagya, for that comment.
So, any other questions, please? So, I have got a observation. So, one fact that we have to admit at this point of time is that many of the teachers are not techno savvy. Is because of perhaps of many reasons, and one is there is no organized or structured courses or programs available for teachers in order to get themselves acquainted with the latest technology. Or perhaps the second one is the fast updations which happen. So I have got an example to make at this point is that I was using Windows 10 till last week. Last week, my computer updated it to Windows 11. And now what I confronted today is that many of the applications which have been using in Windows 10 are not properly working in Windows 11. And some of the resources which I used to go through are the tutorials available in YouTube. And many of the tutorials are the older versions, and they keep on updating, and these updations never work with the old versions. So how do you comment on this, sir?
Well, Dr. Neville, I would say that our what shall we say? Our techno literacy, I would say, maybe I don't know if there's such a word like that. Techno literacy is entirely our responsibility. You can never have a program or a course that will make you techno literate, because I would say it's like using a refrigerator at home, using a washing machine at home. Computer or a smartphone is only a platform. It has so many applications in it. Each application has its own singularities. It is never possible for anybody to teach us to use all these things. So the only way is for us to go on using those things that we need, and then go on using it and learn by using. So this is totally from practical experience that I'm speaking. As I said, I have been using all these gadgets since 2000. I would say not all these gadgets. Whatever were available in 2000 when I bought my first desktop. I have been learning through using. It is possible. Only we have no right to complain. We have no space to complain because we have this machine with you. And if, for example, you have a washing machine at home and you still do not know how to bring in the hot water mode, it is your problem. Neville, I'm not talking to you personally. It's our problem, I would say. But then when I buy a new washing machine, you have the same problem. Formerly, I turned a knob. Now there are buttons, and it's very difficult to understand. So it's like that. And another thing about Windows 11 is those people who have original OS in your systems don't immediately upgrade to 11 because 11 is still coming in. So it will take some time to be optimized. So even though the alert comes, don't upgrade your, update your Windows 10 for a while, and you'll do this Windows 11 later on. So Neville, I would strongly say here to the 39 teachers who are listening, or maybe 45
So
teachers.
54.
54, wonderful. Yeah, 54 teachers who are there, that don't expect anybody to teach us technology. You have your mobile phone. You keep, when you buy the new mobile phone, it will be totally different. And because you really need it, you learn all those things. In the same way, if it's a laptop or a mobile phone, this fact is there. That's why I'm saying the technology changes so abruptly. And don't compare this with the olden days when you buy something, you use it for the next 20 years. Nowadays, unfortunately, it's not like that. That's why e-waste is accumulating. And these gadgets are made to be used only for a very short period of time, which is very, very sad. And technology also keeps changing. It's both because it's big business. All these things are huge multi-billion business, and they'll keep doing it. So it is part of their agenda too, to keep you confused, etc. So don't give in to that. Actually, you don't need a lot of wisdom to use all these things. Just go ahead and use it. Don't wait till somebody teaches you how to upload a video into the YouTube. Fumble, do it, and try out and find out. Because you can't do any damage to your system by experimenting and trying. Only thing is, desist from giving your personal details if you unless you're very sure. So if you want to create a profile in an application, you keep an account separately for that, an email account, etc., where you use it only for these kind of things. Your personal email, where you have all your transactions, bank details, etc. Don't use that email ID or that password for anything else. So you keep a separate email ID and use a separate password for that. Don't use your bank password in your YouTube platform or in your Google platform, which is paid. The only thing you have to be careful is about that. Other than that, you can do no harm in experimenting and trying. And these tutorials, as Neville said, I have made tutorials, and but then by the time somebody listens to it, that model has changed. But the thing is, the change is within a framework. So once you become familiar with the algorithms, you naturally know, okay, this must be the new way. You actually try and learn. That is the only way you can do it. And these tutorials are, maybe you can, I have stopped doing that even, maybe check in the internet and how this can be done, etc. It's now easier. And as technology advances, what happens, it's also becoming simpler. So formerly, to get in, so before Windows, maybe in the so the first time I seriously saw a personal computer was around 1993, when my cousin bought a computer. It had a basic version of Windows, I think. But before that, it was all, you had to type in all the commands. Now it is simple, and now it is made for people with very ordinary intelligence, like all of us. We are not big mathematicians, and we are not big experts in that kind of analysis, but it is meant for ordinary people. Only thing is, we need to keep our minds open. Don't feel that this is all difficult. It may look very difficult, but just go through it a little while until it become very friendly. It's all made for us. Most of the applications are simple. Only thing is, they seem to have a front, just like English language seems to be an intimidating one. Technology also appears to be intimidating It's not really so.
Thank you, sir. So does anyone in our meet have any more questions? So I think, sir, we do not have any more questions. In that case, shall we wind up the session?
Yes, let's conclude. Even I have some work to do.
Okay. Okay. Now I call upon Dr. Nisha, Assistant Professor of Government College, Attingal, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Respected Principal Dr. Sita Lakshmi, Head of the Department Ms. Lakshmi Chandrasekhar, Dr. Lal C.A., IQAC Coordinator Sunil Raj N.V., Webinar Coordinator Dr. Neville Stephen, fellow faculties and dear participants. Now it's time to propose vote of thanks to Dr. Lal C.A., Professor of School of Distance Education, University of Kerala. I'm fortunate enough to listen to his lectures a couple of times, today too, and his usual manner of interaction to his crowd in a very light-hearted but very brilliant way. On fixing this topic for the webinar, I'm sure that Neville sir would not have any other choice other than the name of Professor Lal CA, as Neville sir himself attested in his introduction, the ever best resource person. Yes, he is the best resource person, and with his introduction of the topic, post-pandemic thought on ELT, he took us to the new meanings to learner-centric approach. He ended his thoughts on the possibilities of ICT and equipped us to become effective teachers with technology, and ended up pointing to the limits and cautions of ICT, reminding ourselves of the question whether we actually become effective with the technologies, and very humorously reminded us that we don't have to run after each and every apps. And I may add, sir, you're not on language labs, sir. Very true, sir. Actually, it is an eye-opener. And let me add a personal note. I became an admirer of your talks with your talk on Akripacha you have made at University of Kerala Institute of English. So dear sir, we, the Department of English of Government College, Attingal, extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you for even addressing us as an excellent teacher. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Nisha. Thank you.
Thank you, Lal sir and Nisha ma'am. So we are moving on to paper presentations. Lal sir, you can leave the meeting as you have got a busy schedule ahead of you.
Thank you, Dr. Neville, for inviting me. Thank you to all, and all the very best to all of you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.